All right, everyone, let's budget. Hello everyone, my name is Aishel and welcome back. Today we are going to set a budget and we're going to use me as an example. So if you want to create a budget, grab a drink, grab your budget, grab your planner, grab your paper, grab all of your expenses, and let's get started. So before we dive right in, let's recap what the main different kinds of budgets are. So we have the pay yourself first budget, where you put money aside first and then everything else goes towards your wants and your needs. The next type of budget is the envelope system or the cash stuffing budget. You basically get your paycheck, go to the bank, withdraw everything, and then you put all of that money into envelopes for your variable expenses. Now you can have different payments for your bills that you can't pay in cash with, but for the most part, all of your variable expenses are paid in cash only. So you are basically only using what amount you have in your envelope. The next one, and a more general type of budget, is the 50-30-20 budget. This is basically where 50% of your paycheck goes to your needs, 30% goes to your wants, and then 20% goes to your savings or debt. There's also the zero-based budget, where you basically get the amount that you're paid every month minus all your needs and your wants, and your amount at the end of the month should equal zero. Having a budget is very important so that you can start to see what your baseline is. Once you see your baseline, you can start to set financial goals. You can start preparing yourself for the future and see what you can save up for, so that way those expenses that do come up are not going to be such a surprise when they do. So when you're creating a budget, you should already know what your bills are, when they're due, when you get paid, and how much you get paid. For me, I don't get paid the same amount. So the zero-based budgeting has never really worked for me because I never know what I get paid. So today I'm going to try to create the closest representation of what the zero-based budget will be for me. However, I am still doing the pay yourself first budget, the cash envelope stuffing budget in my own way, of course, and now the zero-based budgeting. So for my budget, I break them down into my fixed expenses, my variable expenses, and my future funds. I have my fixed expenses, which should be a fixed expense. We have our variable expenses, which are basically all the things that we have to spend money on a month-to-month basis. And then we also have our future funds, our savings, the money that we're putting aside for our future self. So for my needs, I am currently paying about $433 a month. Now this is including rent, my phone bill, any other subscriptions that I have, like my iCloud. Now the 50-30-20 budget usually goes out the window at this point because my expenses are so low. All of my expenses tend to fall towards the variable side, which is basically the groceries, gas, any other variable thing that I do have to pay for is usually where most of my money goes. So I've accumulated all of my pay stubs for this year to see what I'm getting paid every month in a general basis. I will give an estimate basically because it all varies depending on how I do for the month. So my take home is roughly about $2,200 a month. Now this is including any Etsy payments that I get or any funds that I get to pay for my bills. And this is where that accountability sinks in, because if I look at how much my take home is, which is that $2,200 a month, from previous months, if you've seen my other videos, I spend an average of about $1,800 to $2,600 just on my variable expenses. So I am not doing a very good job budgeting properly for me because of this fact alone. So I am basically overspending still, even doing the no spend challenge. Wow. I know that a lot of you guys out there have a hard time budgeting just like I do, because I usually tend to pay for the things that I need to pay for, which ends up still being over my budget. Now, the only reason that I can play this money game here right now is because of three different things. The first reason is how I divide my paycheck. My paycheck is separated into three different bank accounts. The first one is direct deposited to my checking account for the minimum required balance that I need to not get charged a fee. The second one is another $250 or whatever is extra to be deposited into my savings account for my sinking funds or any savings challenges that I may have. And the third is direct deposited into another high yield savings account that yields anywhere from like 6 to 6.5% APY. So anytime that I cannot pay for my expenses for the month, I will dip into that high yield savings account to pay for my bills. Now, because I do get a fluctuating paycheck, it can be less than $2,200, it can be more than $2,200. Any extra money that I have, I put aside towards that savings account and I leave it there. And I keep that as a savings account for a buffer for any kind of emergency that I may possibly have. The second reason is because I also pay with a credit card. Every time I pay for something, that means that I am borrowing money, which means that that bill will not be due for at least 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes next month. But I do not use my credit card to continuously rack up debt. I usually pay for that balance in full by the end of that billing cycle. I do not use my credit card for any other reason except for my variable expenses that I know that I will be paying at the end of that month. Because I do not have any debt, I'm keeping it that way unless I'm spending money for a big purchase that I know is going to benefit me in the long run. Now, because I pay with my credit card, any expenses that I cannot cover because I didn't get paid enough, I use points to pay for those expenses. Now, the last reason is because I have sinking funds. I basically put money aside beforehand, whether it's the year prior or during the year before something is actually due. If you've looked at your past expenses, you will know that you will have recurring charges every single year. These could be for things like taxes, for registration, for your credit card renewal, for any expenses that you can possibly think of that you know are going to come up every single year. Subscriptions are one of those things too. Another big expense would be for insurance. I like to pay for my insurance 6 months at a time so that I can save money and I also don't have to worry about it for the next 6 months and I can keep my expenses low. So I've been doing sinking funds for my yearly expenses and I can talk a little bit more about that in another video. So from that take-home amount, that should all equal 0 after we subtract our wants, our needs, and our savings. So from our take-home pay, I automatically do the pay yourself first budget. I automatically deduct $500 a month or $250 per paycheck into my sinking fund account. So from my take-home pay, with the $500 deducted to go to my sinking funds, I am left with $1,700. Now that $1,700 is basically taking care of our needs and our wants. Now our needs, like I said, was $433. So from that $1,700 minus our needs, which is $433, we are left with $1,267 for our variable expenses. So from the $1,200, I will put my variable expense breakdown on the screen, but I basically have $130 for my gas. I have $700 for my groceries. I put $25 for dogs, which is going to stay at $25. I don't care what I do. It's going to stay under $25. I have $0 for health, $200 for work. I put $100 for home just because I know that we are going to spend money on cleaning supplies. I also put $40 for takeout, which I know that I'm supposed to have $0, but this no spend challenge has been killing me when it comes to takeout. So I put myself at a budget for $40, which allows us to be able to go out to eat once. For drinks is $0. For builds, I was going to put a budget for this, but I've already put money aside for builds. So any money that I end up spending for builds, I will be taking out from my savings for that. Snacks, I've usually put about $80 for this, but I'm going to put $50 just to see if I can do that, because I know that's a huge challenge and I kind of just spend money on snacks just because I can. But with this budget, this is really going to make me stick to my guns. For gifts, I put $0. For everything else is $0, and I don't think I'll have any miscellaneous categories. But I did put $20 for stock up on food just in case. But that should put me at about $1,265. Now that $1,265 for our variable expenses should put us the closest as it possibly can get to the $0-based budget, but also still be able to pay myself first, do the envelope system with my sinking funds because I'm already putting money aside for those. So with that being said, I hope that this helps you create a better idea of what you can do with a budget, how you can use all the different types of budget to help you make your financial goals more achievable and help you use your money a little bit better than you were doing it before. Whether you are coming up with different ways of how you can put more money aside for your savings, what you can do to take advantage of the tools that you already have. Every single month, we have to constantly reassess what we have and what we spend money on, if we can cut them down, if we can save money here, what we need to do to constantly make our financial goals a reality, and how we can use our budget to get there. So I hope this video helps, and I'll see you guys on the recap video of how I actually did on my budget. So I'll see you then. Take care.